About to begin, we're actually waiting on Mr. Johnson to bring some additional documentation down. I think we're going to go ahead and start. We'll skip over that item and then we'll take it back up when he gets here. Prior to beginning our meeting, I'm going to stand for a moment of silence that I will follow up with a pledge of allegiance to our flag. And if you choose to join with me, please do so. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we'll go ahead and call to order the June 28th special called meeting of the Sumner County Board of Education. With regards to roll, we will show all members present with the exception of Mr. Daniels. As I said earlier, Mr. Johnson is getting some supporting documentation on item 1, and without objection, I am going to remove item 3 on the agenda. And so if we can, we will start with item number 2, consideration of a revision to policy CD, discrimination, harassment, bullying, and retaliation upon second reading. I'll remind the board that staff needed this approved, if we do approve it on second reading, so they have time to get it printed in the student handbook. Is there a motion?
Second.
Motion by Mr. Brewer, a second by Ms. Cox. Any discussion? Mr. Gregory?
I did ask Dr. Phillips last meeting if he felt comfortable with this, and
I do, Mr. Gregory.
Okay.
We've had time to review this at the administrative level and clarify a few of the points of process, so I do feel comfortable with this moving forward.
Mr. Wise?
he's the person that has to manage it, so if he feels comfortable with it, I do.
All right, thank you, Mr. Gregory. Mr. Wise?
If I may address Mr. Fuqua, does this pretty much echo the new state law on bullying?
I put a phrase in there that the definitions in the state law would be the ones that would be used in this policy, and with that, I think it does. I didn't recopy them.
Okay.
I think it would be good to have a copy of the state law stuck behind it or something.
Reason I bring that point up, I don't know where, I think it was last night, some brief idle moment I had. I either read it in the paper or saw it on TV. Nationally, Tennessee's, more specifically, cyberbullying may possibly be infringing on freedom of speech and that sort of thing. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, the courts will have to just take that up case by case. I think that where they do it off campus, and the cases have been, maybe 50-50, where they do it on campus or involving school children, other children, the success rate on those cases have been higher. But if they criticized a school official off campus on their own computer, school systems have lost about half of those cases.
Dr. Phillips?
And that's a great point. I think the court cases that I've followed, especially in the last couple of years across the country, it really has come down to the degree of harm that could have been done to other people or to staff or those types of things, and that's always left to interpretation once it gets to that level. But certainly, I think it's important for you to take all of them in a serious nature, and so that's our intent.
Mr. Duncan?
Yeah. How do we handle those cases? And if two people, say student, have a conflict and they go get an order of protection, no contact, how we handle that? They're in the same classroom.
if they get an order of protection, then it's up to the court to handle it instead of us. But I think if they're really having physical problems, I think Dr. Phillips would probably find another classroom or another school for one of them.
Yeah, and I think probably in regard to this policy, my understanding is that the new wave is cyberbullying, which brings into the things like off-campus computer and Facebook and all the other things that are used to communicate. You're talking about more bullying that we've had around, I guess, since school started. We started having schools, and our discipline policy should handle that throughout the buildings.
Okay, I was just wondering, you know, if somebody's bullying another kid and he makes a threat on that kid and then that kid goes get order of protection on him, then that means that, you know, usually the court would say no contact, period, for a threat.
And our policy and procedures that happen once that's reported at the school level should handle that.
All right, anyone else? All right, I have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? We'll show that passes. Next, Mr. Johnson's still looking for item 1, so next we'll move on to item 4, consideration of 1981 financial management system. Board, I'll direct your attention to a resolution that we have labeled as Resolution 2011-1. I'll explain this briefly if I can. Obviously, you can read this for yourself, but in essence, at the county commission meeting last week, there was an amendment put forth by one of the commissioners to form a committee to work on a private act in the event the 81 Act was in fact repealed. We know that a majority of the county commission voted to repeal that act, but it was not 2/3 of the commission, and so it wasn't repealed. Since that meeting, I have heard that there are perhaps a few commissioners who had concerns about this board's willingness to cooperate with them in drafting a private act that was to the benefit of both the county general folks and the school board folks. And I worked with Mr. Fuqua to draft the resolution that is in front of you that in essence commits this board to cooperating. And the creation of the committee that was outlined by the commissioner and work with the county commission to determine how it benefits both parties. I just wanted this board to take a formal position that we are willing to cooperate. We recognize that perhaps there are some benefits to sharing certain things and working through those issues together. And so you've got this resolution before you. That's what I'm asking that this body adopt, and we will send that over to the county commission and ask them to accept it and adopt it as well. Mr. Wise?
Motion to approve.
Have a motion. Is there a second? A second by Ms. Cox and others. Is there any discussion? Mr. Wise?
Dr. Phillips, I assume you've had an opportunity to read over this, and I'd like to get your response to that.
I have, and Mr. Wise and I do agree that I think this is the correct course of action. I think that this sends a strong signal that this board is willing to sit down, have open dialogue, open communication, which is what we need. Two-way communication, not just one way, and for us to find ways that we can work together, because our county is much stronger when both entities are working together to make our community better, and that's what we all need to be focused on doing. So I would ask you that you pass this.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? We'll show that that was unanimously passed. Next, item number 5, discussion and/or action regarding boardroom technology. And I think if you'll look at the page immediately behind the resolution, you'll see a spreadsheet that talks about the boardroom technology. I'm going to let Mr. Johnson and Dr. Phillips explain this. I will remind the board that we were successful in securing a grant for $10,000 for the installation of technology in this meeting room and for the migration into a digital management system that's going to make, once we get past the learning curve, it's going to make it a lot easier for all of us to do our jobs, for the staff, for the media, and others. So they are short just a little bit. I understand we do have funds within our budget to cover this, and it was just a few additional items. And Dr. Phillips wanted to bring this to the board for approval so we can get this implemented. And Dr. Phillips or Mr. Johnson, either one?
I will, and I'll let Mr. Johnson answer all the technical questions. But I know he and Bryce have been working on this for quite some time, and we were fortunate to be able to get the grant that Chairman Long mentioned to help offset the vast majority of these costs that you see detailed here. Obviously, I'm excited about having the opportunity to have electronic data management system for not only our policies, which will be good for transparency within the community, also within our system because they can just look them up electronically. I'm happy about that. I think when we all, and I had a similar system in Mississippi, and when we become familiar and comfortable enough with it to just shift to having our computer terminal, we can organize things and you can recall them from previous meetings. It just makes transparency a little bit easier to happen. And of course, we want you to feel comfortable with using the equipment. If you still want to receive a paper packet, by all means, we're going to give you one. Okay, so it doesn't mean that we're going to have to make a total shift, but I do think it's a step in the right direction. When we talked about this, Mr. Johnson came to me and we were discussing things, and I mentioned to him these are kind of the things that I want to make sure we can do, because I do want to have PowerPoint presentations and other things that I can do for the board. And right now in our current setup, that'd be a little difficult, but in the future it won't be. And so just even little things like that will I think, make it a much better setup for us. So technical questions, Mr. Johnson, any other overarching broad things I'll be glad to address.
All right, Mr. Wise?
I do recall, without having to pull it up electronically, that I opposed this $10,000 grant because I felt like that was, if we could get a grant for that, surely we could get a grant for $10,000 to go in the classroom. But in doing some more listening and doing some more studying, I appreciate this board being able to get that grant. I appreciate what this can do. I'm looking forward to presentation. I'm not looking forward to learning to use a iPad or whatever it is. I can use a laptop, but anyway, you know, sometimes you look back on your career serving on these boards and you think, well, did I do the wrong thing there? Did I do the right thing here? That sort of thing. But in my mind at that time, I just didn't think it was right to spend money in this boardroom without spending that money in the classroom. And but with our new director and the excitement and the energy that he's bringing to this position and to this school system, I'm supporting it.
Thank you, Mr. Wise. Mr. Hale?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dr. Phillips, assuming we approve this right now, when will we see this implemented in this boardroom?
We are attempting to have set up some training, and I'm not sure Mr. Johnson's confirmed.
We have set up some training. We've set up some
There you
training
go.
for the July 19th meeting. The board docs will be here. I talked to Chairman Long about this a little bit earlier. We are going to start the meeting at 5:30. Training process should take about an hour, and then because we'll have the vendor here to hold our hands, we'll go ahead and go through the meeting for the first time on the new system. That's our goal. If this is approved tonight, we'll send out the purchase orders for the equipment tomorrow and get everything set up and get ready.
And July 19th. Sure.
On top of it.
And for we felt like it would be a really good idea. It just seemed logical that they would be here during our first board meeting while we were using it in case we needed to ask questions about how that works a certain way. They'll be here to respond to concerns or issues and that type of thing. So we just thought that was logical to set it up. Plus, you'll already be coming anyway, and so we just felt like that'd be a good thing. And obviously, as I mentioned, we want you to be comfortable. So that meeting, if you still want your packet, we'll be glad to do that. In any subsequent meetings, we'll just kind of have to work through the process of making sure everybody's comfortable.
Well, actually, for that meeting, everybody will have a packet because Board Docs will not be here to run us through how to set it on until Monday. And so we'll have full in-house training on Monday, which spills over into Tuesday and then wraps up with you guys learning how to use it. So you'll probably wind up still getting a paper packet that Friday, and then everything will be converted over and we'll learn, and then we'll go forward from there.
All right, at some point, I'm gonna need a motion. Motion by Mr. Hale, second by Ms. Cox. Ms. Cox, did you have some comment?
I just had a question or a comment. I know, Mr. Johnson, that we talked about, and I just want to reiterate that this will allow then our constituents to be able to, if we change a policy that night or an updated policy, they will be able to access that via
Yeah,
our website.
one of the
or
things-
I think that's one of the things that's exciting to this board.
One of the things that our two top priorities will be, once we actually get the thing up and running, we'll be doing agendas going forward. We will probably try to build at least a year's archive back, but that's probably not gonna be the first thing we're gonna do. The first thing we're gonna do is put all the effort we can into getting the policy manual online. I think that's probably the most important piece of getting all this thing online, and then we'll have the packets moving forward. There's a couple different interfaces to this. There's a public interface that people will be able to access from our website, and they'll be able to look through the packets and all the parts of the packets that's public. There's really only two things in the packet that's not, and both of them concern students. And then there'll be a interface for you guys. The interface for you guys also has a place where you can make notes and where you can, send little messages that say, I'd like to see this changed in this policy and things like that. But in answer to your question, yes, we'll be able to hit a button that says this policy's been adopted, and it'll put it straight up in the policy manual. But first things first is we've got to get the policy manual into the system.
Dr. Phillips?
And one thing that's also neat, and we'll learn all this stuff together, but you can put an explanation. So as a note, so when you're looking from home or you're reviewing the board information for the meeting that's coming that Tuesday, or if it's a special call, then you can read my explanation or Ms. Dursky's or why we're doing that. So you already know that. You think about that before you get here. Another thing, too, is it lets us search, which is kind of neat. It's technology. We used to have to call around to find what other policies were out there in certain areas. But now you can do a search through the program, and
Well, it also has links straight into Tennessee state law. So rather than us sitting here and saying, what does Tennessee state law say, you'll have a little spot up on the top of the page where you can click it, go straight to Tennessee state law and look it up. So
and it'll allow us to search other districts that are using the same platform, so we can find out how other policies are structured about that same topic in other states or wherever we need to.
All right.
Has
Mr.
our
Brown?
technology department been brought into this? Are they gonna be able to maintain this thing, keep it up, keep it going?
Yes, sir.
Be
We've been
easy?
working with Jeremy on this, making sure we know what technology's coming in. We've been working with them on software, so we'll be up to speed.
Sounds good.
Mr. Embry's response was yes, for the record.
yeah, and just kind of a quick overview of what we're doing. What we went through several variations of and discussions and met with a couple of board members to seek some input, and what we wound up deciding to do was we're going to give everybody a monitor station. You're going to have a small flat screen monitor in front of you. It's low profile, it's 19 inches, and it's a wide screen, so you'll be able to, it'll look about like Mr. Hale's iPad. You'll be able to see over it, but it'll be big and nice, and you'll be able to read it.
Let me stop you. There will be no iPads involved in this system.
About the
I
size
wanna
of
make that
Mr. Hale's
abundantly
iPad. What it'll
No
basically be is a computer station for everybody. You won't have, it is, we'll be setting up one big computer that all the monitors will piggyback off of. You won't know the difference. Your computer will function like a computer because Board Docs basically runs off an internet portal. You'll be able to do everything you want to do. If you try to watch YouTube, you might notice a difference, but That's about it.
Mr. Johnson, I know you're excited about all that minutia, but that's starting to be a little bit too much information for me. All right, the question has been called. All in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? We'll show that passes. Next, item 6, consideration of amendments to the general purpose budget. Ms. Dursky?
These are just a number of amendments, primarily what I call housekeeping amendments at the end of the year. These are lines where the salary lines were over by, in most cases, a relatively small amount, and there was money in other lines in those categories, and we're just shifting them into the salary lines. This avoids an audit issue at the end of the year.
Have a motion by Mr. Hale, a second by Ms. Cox. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Next item on our agenda is item 7, consideration of amendments to federal projects budget. Ms. Dursky again.
Same explanation as above.
Motion by Mr. Wise, second by Mr. Duncan. Any discussion? Mr. Hale?
Stapled in between the last one and this one, there's also a bid minutes for Indian Lake canopies in there. Is that appropriate to be in the package? Are we addressing that tonight, or is?
That's item 1 that we're going to come back to.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any more discussion on the federal projects amendment? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? We'll show that has passed. And now we're back to the remaining item, consideration of bids. Ms. Dursky?
The first bid for consideration is the renewal of our fuel contract for our diesel and gasoline. This was bid 1 year ago, and we have the option to renew each year for 3 years, and we're recommending to renew the contract for our fuel.
Motion by Mr. Hale. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Wise. Mr. Wise, did you have something?
I was just gonna see if we were gonna put all these together or handle them individually. Whatever you
I
want
think
to do.
probably best, you don't have that many, do you?
No,
remember what the
most of
total
them are clear cut, but I think it's probably better to take them individually.
Okay. All right, I have a motion, a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Ms. Dursky?
The second bid is the school buses. This was on the consent agenda at your meeting earlier this month. I failed to bring your attention to the fact that we needed a decision on air conditioning or no air conditioning on the regular ed buses. And so we have brought the bids back tonight to ask you to consider whether or not to add air conditioning, and then I believe there's also a recommendation regarding the mirrors from the Transportation Department.
Dr. Phillips?
And I tried to include in your packet some information for you, and also a letter from Mr. Barnes. I hope you had an opportunity to read that with his recommendation about those 2 issues that Ms. Dursky just mentioned. I know those were things that we needed an answer to. Mr. Barnes was going to a conference at our previous meeting, so I wanted you to have his summary and rationale for why he's recommending what he's recommending.
Mr. Barnes, would you like to come up to the podium? Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On the air conditioner for the buses, when you begin to look at the cost associated with it, once you put air conditioners on a regular education bus, you're going to be doing that from now on. I don't feel like that we can ever go back and say, okay, next year we're not going to get air conditioners on a regular education bus, because somewhere along the way there will be the great known lawsuit. Or we're going to have to change buses around, and some way or another it's going to end up coming back on us, where we're going to continuously have to have air conditioner on regular ed buses. Also, another thing is after a few years, you begin to have problems. We already run into those problems with our special needs buses, which we do recommend air conditioners for all special need buses. And to work on those mechanical issues with air conditioning, you've got to be certified. Currently, we only have two employees in our department that are certified to work on the air conditioners. So that would be my viewpoint on the air conditioners, and I'll take questions if you have any on that.
All right, Mr. Burr?
Yeah, I had a quick one for you, Ms. Barnes. Could you address the cracking in the frames issue that we read about?
Yes, sir. We've had a situation that it began occurring in the year 2007, and then we came up to the year of 2010, where on the Thomas-built buses, which we had previously bought, we were having trouble with the frames cracking. And if it wasn't the frame cracking, it would be cross members cracking. And we're up to approximately 40 buses that this has been reported on. Some have failed state inspection for this cause, and we are continuously having to have those repaired. Well, first of all, we wouldn't put them on the road with the unsafe condition. The safety of our children comes first. And so what we're having to do is have those repaired by taking them to Murfreesboro, to Mid-South Bus Center, who is the dealer for the Thomas-built buses. Currently, we have approximately 35 to 38 buses on our lot that we are waiting to get a preventative repair so that the frames will not crack again. So basically, that's where we're at right now, Mr. Brewer.
Dr. Phillips?
And I think Mr. Barnes made a good point about this. We, even though we know we have that issue, certainly the student safety comes first, and we'll make absolute certain that we have all of those inspected and repaired and come to standard before they are ever placed back on the road. And we'll work with Mid-South Bus Center to make sure that that occurs.
Mr. Wise, or Mr. Hale?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Barnes, I see on the bids that you're asking for approval tonight that, again, Thomas was the winning bid for the bus that you're recommending. Have they addressed anything in their platform that would keep this from happening in the future, or have they extended that warranty period for us on this cracking? Is that something that they realize is going on beyond Sumner County, and they've changed the way they manufacture this? They're using a new steel, put new stress points in there. How do we know if we buy these buses from that same vendor, we're not gonna have the same problems?
Yes, Mr. Hale, as a matter of fact, there should be a letter from Mid-South Bus Center in your package that speaks concerning that they are in the process of one of the situations is the buses that we're having the problems with was a air suspension bus in the rear. If you'll notice on our specs for the new buses, we ask for springs rather than air suspension to get away from that problem, and also because of cost. And so we've been assured from Thomas Built Buses, the president from Thomas Built Buses actually came to our shop about 2 or 3 months ago and said that they are tremendously working to correct the problem, where that the problem would not be an issue in the future.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Brown?
on the very beginning, Mr. Barnes, on the very beginning of this problem, did they agree to repair and fix these buses? There was no fault to Sumner County Schools that they sent us a bus with a cracked frame on it. Did they fix this at their cost?
There are actually 2 buses that we paid to have repaired, and the cost was $485 a piece.
Did they kind of agree to refund the county for that cost?
As of
there was
yet,
no fault for the county that bought them. You bought them in
correct.
good faith, and there wasn't. Okay.
Correct. It's just over time the frames have cracked.
If I can, Mr. Barnes, let me clarify something. Your recommendation is not to go with the lowest bid of Thomas Built
Correct.
Mid-South
After
Bus Center because of some of these issues we have had. But
Right,
your
after
recommendation is to
consulting-
go with the next lowest, and the total cost difference is about $9,900 on what's the total bid?
2.6.
$2.6 million.
Right, after consulting with Dr. Phillips, we felt that that would be the best recommendation at this time.
Mr. Wise?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Have we found this cracking issue of the frames and cross members to be in a certain year model or consecutive year models?
They would be consecutive.
Over a span of how many year models?
Mr. Wise, I believe we're up to 10 years.
Wow.
Dr. Phillips?
And just, I think, Mr. Chairman, you made that clarification. I'm sorry, Mr. Hale. We're going to recommend that we go with the second low. And of course, that's $9,900 roughly difference in a $2.4 million bid. So really not a lot of range there, but we just felt like probably with the issues we're experiencing, we know we have 30 more that have to have preventive care to keep them passing inspection and to be safe for carrying our students. We just felt like this was the best course of action right now to take.
Mr. Wise?
Well, okay, anyway. I noticed that Mid-South Bus Center in their letter asked if they were not, in essence, if they were not going to be able to be allowed to bid again. I don't think, it's my opinion at this point, once we are 100% sure that they have alleviated this problem, they will continue to be allowed to, or once they have alleviated the problem, they'll be able to bid again. Is that correct, or are we forever removing them?
No, sir, that is correct. And let me add that we have had a good working relationship with Mid-South Bus Center over the years, and this is just a situation that is beyond their control, but we feel like at this time we need proper repairs before we can move on.
All right, Ms. Dunn, do you have something?
Just a few things. After meeting with a group of bus drivers, and I know I was the one that brought up the heated mirrors. That was something that was mentioned to me, and I seen here where you're not recommending that. A couple of other things that they did mention, just so that this is brought to your attention as well, was PA systems in the buses was one of their concerns. Where they're facing forward. I know my mom's a retired school bus driver, so I know they're facing forward and they're, everything's behind them. And they say that some of the kids, especially if they don't have a louder voice, can't hear them. That was a concern they had. And the other concern was, let's see, PA system, and then the cameras being on every bus. They were hoping, some of them weren't so, but then I think most of them had convinced them that it could be a safety feature for the, for the bus driver. So that was a couple other things that were mentioned, just for your information, just so I've passed that on to you. Are there other options besides heated mirrors that would maybe fix that mirror issue that many of them were complaining about?
Actually, there's not. One of the issues that we have with the heated mirrors is they work good for the first year. And this has been our background with the heated mirrors. They work good for the first year. Drivers have a tendency to forget to turn turn the button off. And so the heating elements it just destroys them. Or, of course, on a bus, 40-foot bus, and one of the things that sticks out the most is the mirror. If we're going to catch a tree limb, or if a truck passing us, or however, it's the mirror to go. You can't just go in and replace parts. You got to replace the whole mirror. It's true that you can get a mirror on the bus from the factory for about $100, but to replace that mirror, we're looking at more like $300. And so when the heating element goes out on the mirror, you can't just replace the heating element. You've got to replace the whole mirror set, which is about $300. And I've driven. I'm fortunate enough that I've driven both buses. And for 7 years, I've driven a bus without heated mirrors. For 3 years, I've driven a bus that had the heated mirrors. I can't tell you that there's a difference. Matter of fact, on my recommendation is I like the non-heated better. You can see out of the mirrors better.
Mr. Hale.
I guess we're about ready to vote on this. I have a question, Ms. Dursky. Ms. Dursky, is the funding for this following up on the capital outlay plan we delivered to the Education Budget Committee previously.
Yes, this is an item that we'll take to the Education Committee when they meet July 11th
So this-
and ask for funding.
This is within that capital outlay plan that we've already approved. Okay.
And
I'll
our-
make a motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
All right, I have a motion. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Gregory. Any further discussion? All right, this motion is to accept the recommendation of staff. All in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? We'll show that that passed unanimously. Ms. Dursky?
The next bid is the copy paper bid. This is for July 1st through December 31st. These bids were open this morning. We are recommending American Paper and Twine. Contract Paper Group was a lower bid on the bulk purchasing, which is our intent this year, is to buy paper by the truckload and store it at the warehouse. However, we are not recommending them. They are a company out of Ohio, and the price is good if they only make one delivery all year. And we don't have the capability to store that much paper, nor are we sure that that would be all that we would need. And, they're not going to make smaller deliveries. So we're recommending American Paper and Twine, a local vendor.
I have a motion by Mr. Wise, a second by Mr. Duncan. Any discussion, Mr. Gregory?
And how often will they deliver?
American Paper and Twine, as often as we ask them to.
Well, and I realize that, but can we get it cheaper if we have like 3 deliveries?
Well, if we buy in bulk, and that's at least several pallets at a time, which we intend to do, it will get the bulk price.
So if they make, and I'll just throw this number out again, say 3 times, it would be the same price as if they delivered 1 time.
Their prices, it depends on how much we buy, the quantity purchased rather than the number of deliveries.
Question.
Mr. Brown, then Mr.
On the paper, if you, you have a price that's gonna be, we're buying it all in one lot? Okay, how many trucks would that be?
I truly, I
How
don't know.
much weight would it be? If we bought the LTL up there, did you say somewhere in Ohio?
Yes.
We figured the cost, LTL up there on a smaller amount down to here, and if we paid the cost, would we still be ahead of the cost or saving, or would we be behind? What I'm getting at, I'm not trying to interrogate you, I'm saying that people's in business to do business, and they will do, but they want to get the biggest shot and load and get done with it and
Right.
get away with the money. We've had several instances like that. But what I'm asking is, if they would do LTLs or 3 or 4 ships in here, if we got to raise the price a little bit and we could store it and handle it, would that be better for us, you folks over there in the warehouse business? How much space you got over there? The only point I'm making is, I think we need to look at this thing and see, if we could save some money. If we gotta pay an LTL, less truckload lot coming down here and get them to come every month or every other month.
See, if they come more than once from Ohio, they will not give us the low price. It'll be a higher price.
Well, I guess the first thing I was trying to determine if we had space to take it in. We have space.
We
to
can't
take-
store a year's worth of paper.
How much is a year's worth of paper? I'm just trying to find out.
A lot.
How much weight would that be, and how much space would it cube out? Have we ever, okay, forget I asked the question. I'm just saying,
I just don't have
folks,
that
there's a
information.
way to save some money if we look into some of these bids, you know. So, I think we need to look at this a little further. I'd be glad to take a ride and call the people and talk with them.
All right, Mr. Brewer, and then I'll come back to Mr. Wise.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just had a quick question, Ms. Dursky. Didn't we get a big grant last year and buy like a train load of paper?
We did.
Is it gone already?
Yes, sir, it is.
Okay, just wondered.
But we know a train load isn't enough.
We know we needed it, we know it worked out.
All right, Mr. Wise and then Mr. Gregory.
Ms. Dursky, in looking at bid spreadsheet copy paper, extended total delivery to each location, American Paper and Twine, $121,916.60. Contract Paper Group, $123,680.98. $2,000 difference. I'd say freight's gonna be a lot more than that. Am I reading right?
The numbers that you're looking at are as if they do not deliver to the warehouse, if they deliver to each individual school that, as they order.
Okay.
And American Paper and Twine is the lower bid on that.
Right. And looking at the last number, 106, compared to 102,920, so 103, $3,000 difference. I think freight would be a lot more than $3,000 over a year's time.
Mr. Gregory?
Quick question, will there be a moisture problem while we store it?
No, there was not. We tested it before we bought the truckload that Mr. Brewer referred to last year, and it stored fine, and we had no complaints at all about it. So we're confident that we can store it.
Mr. Hale?
I'm not sure who to commend, but I'd like to commend somebody for coming up with a bulk purchase. So we tried that last year on a special grant. We'd never done that before. It's obviously realizing some savings for us, and I'm not sure who's responsible at this point, but I like the idea and make a motion to approve the recommendation.
All right, I have a motion. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Brewer. Any further discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Brown?
the point I was trying to make is that I know where the product's shipping into, and I'm not trying to I think maybe, and they'll deliver it out to schools, I know that. But, some of these things, we're gonna have to look into just a little bit further. I'm not taking objection to our bid people or whatever, but we've got to look at the bottom line, what it's gonna cost, and can we do it another way? There's people up here that's backhauling up there on different things. We might get them to pull down a load once every 2 weeks and to this DC over here. That's the reason we bought that thing over there, and it's doing a great job. And the whole board's to be commended for funding and getting that thing up and running. So I'm just saying there, let's see what we can do. But,
All right, thank you, Mr. Brown. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? We'll show that passes. Ms. Dursky?
Okay, next bid is the Indian Lake Elementary School canopies. This is being paid for by the Indian Lake PTO from funds that they have raised. They are recommending, actually the third lowest bidder. This is the company that has done the other awnings at that school. They've been very pleased. These will match the others, and it's PTO funds, so we are recommending the bid that they have selected.
Motion by Mr. Wise. Is there a second? Second by Ms. Silkwood. Is there, have they deposited those funds with us at this point?
This will be done July 1st.
Okay, and we're going to go through our process.
Yes,
we approved
absolutely.
last meeting.
And they do have the funds. It's just a matter of getting them up here July 1.
All right, very good. All right, I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Show that passes. Ms. Dursky?
Hendersonville High School Iron Bunker Floor Tile and Weight Room. There was only one bidder. This is being paid for from school funds, and again, they will deposit those with us July 1. We'll issue the purchase order and oversee the work.
Motion by Mr. Hale, second by Mr. Wise. Mr. Gregory, you're going to have to be quicker on your button. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? We'll show that passes. Ms. Dursky?
Last but not least, Mr. Johnson has the missing bid. This is 47 computers for school nutrition to be used in the offices of the school nutrition departments in each school. This is off of the Wilson County bid, 47 computers, $34,404. And we'd like to order them with this year's funds and get them into the schools for the beginning of the year. Yes, sir.
Motion to approve this?
I have a motion by Mr. Hale, second by Mr. Brewer. Is there any discussion? Mr. Wise?
You did say out of school nutrition fund.
Yes, these are purchased from that budget.
That's a lot of chocolate milk. There's not. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? We'll show that passes. Do you have anything else, Ms. Dursky?
I'm done, and I do appreciate your help with these last-minute items.
Before we adjourn, Board, I'm going to ask Dr. Phillips to introduce the new face sitting at the staff table.
Yes, I think most of you may recognize Ms. Brown, and she is our new Assistant Director for Instruction. I think I mentioned that at the board meeting, but she was with her daughter, who's going to be a freshman at Sanford, doing some freshman orientation, so she was out those couple of days, but we're glad to have her assuming her new position. She's hit the ground running, and we've already had several meetings together, and so real excited about her being part of our senior administrative team.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. I appreciate you being here. I know most of our meetings don't last 45 minutes. They're more about 30, but maybe that's a sign of good things to come. All right. Without any further business, we stand adjourned.